Hi, I'm José Tijerín, and today we're going to see all the possibilities that the new BuildingGen tool from Reallusion offers us. You have several great content packs available to create entire cities with aesthetics as beautiful as the French-style building packs. But you can also make the most of the tool by creating your own parts of original buildings, elements to create beautiful gardens, or even train carriages. You can easily export all this to other programs such as Unreal Engine to create great scenes. Let's start by remembering the basics in iClone. First, you must have created all of the models you know you will need for the final building to be complete. To do this, I recommend downloading the models of the building parts that Reallusion offers us and taking them as a reference in our favorite 3D creation program. For this first example, I have quickly created a few elements that will form a squat round building so you can see that any shape is possible. Thanks to iClone's own UV options, I was able to project the textures on the parts of the building without having to create the UVs myself. After this, I have checked that the pivot point of each element is in the right place. This way we'll save ourselves from having to make corrections later so that all elements fit perfectly. As you have seen, there are additional complements to the building that are automatically placed when the building is generated, such as doors and windows. In my case, I have a peculiar corner building with 2 windows. It's possible to apply several models associated to a single part of the building, but I'm going to create this set to be able to apply a trick that I will explain later. Doing so is very simple. You just have to place both elements in the right place and apply an attach from one to the other. Then, like the rest of the elements, add the combined model to the content folder, and that's it. Now that the preparation is done, it's time to set up our own BuildingGen packager. You can find the menu with this name at the top of iClone. After opening it, we have to start by naming the package and creating a new style for it. Once we've done this, we only have to drag all the content we've created for the building into the window, except for the complements such as doors or windows. And let's start with the roof. This element must have the category wall and be placed only in the category top level. Don't forget to check the corner box when it is one, so that the package doesn't cause problems. The wall with windows must have the type category window, but in order to have the window placed, I must drag its model to the child elements zone. Once placed, we must apply the tag window to the tag. This would be important especially if we have several types of sails to apply. Having explained this, I'll skip the rest of the elements until I reach the corner of the building that has 2 windows. As you can see, it doesn't allow me to include the window. This is because the program wants to avoid having duplicate models unnecessarily. To be able to place it, we only have to go to the window that we had placed previously and return to be able to paste it where we want. However, now we have another problem. If we apply the window tag to the models, the program will think that there are 2 different window models, 2 varieties for variety, and it will only apply one of them randomly each time you place the corner model. To avoid this, the solution is simply to remove the tag, but of course, this takes away the possibility of making several combinations of different windows. This is why we combined 2 windows before. This way, if we had 2 different window models, we could keep the possibility of using both. Now that we know this, we can use it to our advantage. Let's say, for example, that I want a wall full of decorative plates randomly placed around the wall. Knowing this, I can select any wall and add a few plates to it. If I label half of them as doors and the other half as windows, I'll have a lot of possible plate combinations automatically. In order to do something like this, I have to make sure they occupy a different place. To be able to change the place and size of the plates on the wall, we only have to click on the arrow symbol, and when the floating window appears, click on the preview option. That way we can enlarge the size of the plate and place it just in the right spot. If we do this with all the other plates and generate a kind of wall, we can see that the result is just what we were looking for. Continuing with the previous example, let's finish creating the package. In my case, I won't need to create the floor part of the building, but for the building generation to be done correctly and add the option to add corners, I recommend adding them. If we don't have them modeled, as in my case, we can go to the package that Reallusion offers and look for the missing models to add them. Once this is done, we only have to export the file and go to the iBuilding folder. If we click on the new package, the menu of our package will automatically be displayed along with the preview for it. If everything has gone well, we will see that we have the option to apply the corners of the building in the menu. We select the configuration of the buildings we want, and that's it. Now the tool can go into a direct editing mode where we can change parts of the building or, in my case, remove the building's floors and add a roof. This would be a quick general example. Then I could easily take it into Unreal where I could apply some of the interesting properties to the materials to avoid having to texture the models. Let's take a look at some others before doing a more complete work and talking about rendering. BuildingGen is a more versatile tool than you might imagine at first glance. You can assemble almost anything that can be organized into rectangles and take advantage of the procedural advantages. This tool allows you to gain speed, especially when you want to assemble large scenery elements with many components. But at the same time, it allows you to create with a couple of clicks several variations of the same element. We can create ruins, seaports, or gardens, as in this case. I have a quick model of a wall and a bush only. With something so simple, I can compose a space with this tool. The trick will be to generate squares of increasing size to enclose each element inside the other, and duplicate them to create an even larger space. In just a couple of minutes, we can have a great garden. And just imagine what it could look like if we combine several types of shrubs and flowers. As another example, you can download either of the two train packages I offer at Sketchfab and easily upload their parts to iClone. As in this case, we have in the same module the roof, the wall, and the floor together with the seats. We only have to save the three components that make up the train in the content folder. We create a BuildingGen packager package to generate the building. And in just 1 minute, we have the whole train set up to the length we have left. Now that we've seen these examples, it's time for a bigger project. I've decided to create a whole old Spanish village of white houses modularly. The package will have two different styles, one of lower houses built in a rougher, more humble-looking way, and other higher houses that can have a first floor with a terrace with a clearly better construction. I'll create variations of the windows and doors to make the village appear to have more variety. And additionally, I'll create decorative pots and plates to adorn the walls. I've used the 3D program Maya to model them on the basis of the modules that Reallusion offers and textured them in Substance Painter. You can quickly get the same modular models if you go to Sketchfab and search for Spanish Modular Village Houses. Now we can go into iClone and, one by one, introduce all the modules that make up our buildings. Make sure, as already mentioned, that their center and size is correct so that everything ends up fitting together. In my case, creating the package, I create two different styles for the humble house and for the more affluent house. Once created, I generate the building with the specifications that I want, and the result is generated. As we can see, the building has a peculiarity of having a gable roof. To correct the problem, we eliminate the roofs by clicking twice on the element that we want to select to delete. In the same way, we select the sidewalls that we want to replace. And when we do this, we see how the BuildingGen menu appears the image of this modular element. If we look for the correct wall in the content menu, we only have to drag it to the BuildingGen menu to replace it. And once all this is done, we can add various add-ons into the building later on. For example, a chimney. Then we can make the chimney part of the building by attaching it to the building. In the same way, I'm going to add some typical flower pots hanging on the wall. And all these details add differentiating elements to the building. And well implemented, they can make our village really seem to have buildings totally different from each other. The more of these elements we have, the more richness we will give to our town or city. But it will also give us a lot of information about those who actually inhabit these buildings. For the wealthier and bigger houses, for example, I will decorate them with elements that denote a greater purchasing power than the flower pots. In this case, the typical decorative ceramic plates of southern Spain. After finishing creating a few of the various buildings, I'm going to export them to Unreal Engine 5. In this latest version of Unreal, we have a unique advantage that will help our buildings have a much more realistic finish. This is Nanite, and I've imported several modular elements from the packages offered by Reallusion so you can see the comparison. As you can see, surprisingly, using the same 3D model, if we use the Nanite properties in the material on the model, we get an extraordinary volume that cannot be simulated with a normal map. By applying this technique to the surface of the model, it becomes almost infinite in polygons without the performance of the program or the game suffering at all. This is especially noticeable if we get close to the surface of the models, but it also improves the final finish of the lights and shadows dramatically. Let's take a look at how to achieve this quickly on this stone wall. Remember that to do this, we need all these elements to have the Nanite option activated, something we should always do to improve performance. And as you can see here, we have a simple material that uses normal textures. If we don't have a displacement map, as in this case, we can use the ambient occlusion maps that Reallusion always includes in its building materials. To activate the Nanite properties of the material, we have to click on the material node and scroll through its properties until we find the option Used with Nanite. After this, we have to look for a second option called Enable Tessellation and also activate it. If we now go to Nanite Visualization and click on the Triangles option, we'll be able to see the polygons that Nanite is handling in the model. There's so many that it looks like a completely gray surface, and yet the performance of the program remains unchanged. If we go back, we will see that in the material node, there is a new option called Displacement. Just attach the AO texture to it to make the magic happen and save. The result is simply spectacular and offers much more detail. With this technique, we create a volume in the model that enhances the lights and shadows without deforming the modular element. This way, we don't have to fear that the model will no longer fit with the rest of the 3D models. Another element to highlight is that this technique does not have to be applied to the whole model. We can see how now the volume of the rocks that form the facade outlines the rest of the elements of the facade. Surely the place where you will most appreciate these were the corners of the building that, until now, were perfect straight lines. Finally, I couldn't forget how this significantly improves the results that decals offer. I recommend to additionally use some decals to make our buildings more distinct from each other. The most common example is graffiti. Notice how the graffiti also takes on the volume of the wall, giving us the fantastic feeling. But we can go a bit further. We can adjust the projection area of the texture so it only influences the shallowest parts of the rocks. And now we can really feel that this is a paint applied to this facade. Now I've exported one of the houses to an Unreal project. You can do it directly with the iClone plugin that connects the program with Unreal in a quick and easy way, but I don't recommend it. If you export it directly, the model will be exported as a skeletal mesh. And this will be a problem, especially if you're creating a video game, so I have first run it through a program like Maya to export it as an OBJ. As you can see, I have already put most of the textures, but I've decided that all the walls of the house will have the same projected material. This will allow me to tilt and deform the building without the texture deforming or tilting as well. To do this, I've created a material and I'm going to look for the World Align texture node. And in order to connect the textures to it, I'm going to look for the texture object node. I place the texture in this last node and connect it to the World Aligned in the connection with the same name and connect it to the material. As you can see, the texture has already been projected all over the model, but its size is so small that you can't even see it. To adjust the size correctly, I'm going to take out a multiply node and place 20 by 20 values in it. Now that it has the right size, I'm going to do the same with the rest of the textures so that everything fits. After this, I apply the Nanite properties to the material, as we have already seen, and do the same with the rest of the buildings I've generated. To finish with the tutorial, I'm going to explain something very useful for when you're making an old town or city. This is about deforming buildings, and to start with, we are going to duplicate the model we want to deform. And this is because the deformed building will overwrite its previous undeformed version. To do the test, I have chosen a large, elongated building that I want to follow the curve of the road. Once the building is placed on the stage, we just need to enter the modeling editing mode. And once the menu appears in the Deform section, we can select the Warp option. It's a very intuitive tool, however, it's possible that our buildings may give some visualization problems at this point because they are composed of many elements. It's not a problem because the yellow curved line that appears will indicate what the final result will be. As you can see, we can rotate and move this curve to obtain different results. We can also modify its curvature by rewriting the values that appear in the lower menu. As you can see, the result is fantastic, even in the roof part. So we can make the buildings look much more natural and nice thanks to deformations like these. Now I'm going to do the same with the smaller buildings. In this case, it has occurred to me that the same building could have an inward curved version and an outward curved version. And this way, I'll have 3 models with which to compose meandering streets throughout the town. Before finishing, remember also that you can make several deformations in a row on a single model, so the possibilities are endless. Thanks to the good base offered by the iClone program, we can make any kind of modifications on this model, obtaining always good results. In addition, being able to create buildings so quickly, we can invest the time in the more creative parts, such as the creation of 3D objects or the placement and customization of the buildings on the map. That's all. I leave you with the final result. I hope you found the tutorial useful. Don't forget to subscribe to the official Reallusion channel for more news and video tutorials like this one.